before I get into how I avoid burnout, I have to say that I have never yet made it through a season without suffering from burnout. So this is coming from like 8 years of experiencing, like attempting to adjust slightly. So I feel like I'm getting there, and I think that this is actually the year. So I feel like I might have some good input. And that is just simply to be aware of what's happening before your typical time of burnout. So I typically burn out in August and I'm completely done by September. And I think it's really important to be aware then in the months of May, June, July, where you are potentially overworking, that you need to be conscious of how you're treating yourself at those times so that by August, you're not burnt out. Because when you get burnt out, it's irreparable. By that point, you can't really undo it without months of work and balance. So preemptively, you need to plan at the right time, which is May, June, July. The biggest thing that you have to remember is that to-do list is not going anywhere. You're on a farm, you're always going to be able to find something to do, and you have to view your entire business as one big picture, because if you get fixated on the smaller battles that you're losing, then you're not really looking at the big picture. So the season as a whole is what you should be viewing, and your well-being is the most important thing to success for an overall successful season. Because you burn out in August, you're not going to have a good September.
Burnout is a real thing that we all experience, and my biggest suggestion that we really try to keep true to is to keep time for yourself. You have to take a day off from the farm and close it. You have to do something that feeds other passions besides farming, and you have to keep true to that no matter what. No matter how big that list is, you have to take that Monday night off and go play a soccer game, or go see your friends, or go read a book in a park, or whatever it is that just feeds your cup. And you have to continue doing that continuously. It's so important to feed yourself while you're feeding everyone else.
How I manage burnout is by really planning the full season in minute detail in the winter. That way, once I get into the season, the height of the season, I'm managing plant growth, disease, pests, but new plantings, successions. I have it all written down, and I just mindlessly follow the plan. I also give myself a little break. So every August, I give myself a 4-week break off of markets. We will still do other things, but having that break from markets allows me to have my weekends, and just that helps me to reset and then finish the season off really, really strong.
The thing that always made me feel better when I was burned out and that time of year or any time of year was visiting another farm and getting to talk to the farmers there, and just getting to understand that I'm not the only one dealing with the endless list of problems and things and rotating things and priorities, and meeting someone else that does it and is also a fellow human on earth, and you it's grounding, and you realize everything's okay, and you'll relax in a month or two when things calm down.
Taking care of yourself physically, like more so than with any other job, I think can help you at least with that physical burnt out. I don't have any energy left to do this anymore. Really think about what you're eating, how much water you're drinking. I think a season where you've taken care of yourself, at the end of it, you're going to feel a lot better than a season where you were kind of just surviving.
Eat well, sleep well, drink lots of water. Those are really the 3 main things that every day you have to make sure that you do. Sometimes it can be left to the back burner and you forget to just take care of yourself. You're taking care of things that are living, but you have to remember that you're also living. So have a really tight schedule. Making sure that you're well prepared for your work days and that you're not trying to do everything all at once. I've made that mistake many times, is that you do your farm tour, you check all your crops, you make your list, and then you're like, well, okay, well, where do I start? So you have to kind of just break things down into priorities and figure out, okay, what can I realistically get done in this time frame that makes sense for myself, makes sense for the farm, makes sense for just my mental health.
Sometimes we're thinking about the ecological sustainability of the farm, or maybe the economical sustainability, but what about our mood and our energy and the sustainability of ourselves? I think it's really it's a really important question we have to ask ourselves and find ways to mitigate it. And for us, it has been to put all the strategies we find to meditate, to eat well, sleep, having time off, forced time off. It's all good strategies, but if you don't put it in a yearly objective, it's really easy to forget it and just to leave it on the side and not make anything about it. So when it's written, you can refer to it. You can see that, oh, I'm not on the right track now. You really have to professionalize your way of doing things. If every year you're kind of improvising things, you'll always end up with results are not regular and consistent. So what do you want is that year after year, it's always easier and easier.
I think it's easy for farmers to become kind of like productivity monsters. But if you kind of zoom out and see your farm from a more global scale, if the work's getting done, if the vegetables are being sold, and the vegetables coming out of the field are nice, then maybe you can leave a little early. Maybe it's okay if the weeds grow up a little bit. You know what I mean? I find whenever I get really, really stressed out, it's usually because I'm hyper-focusing on small little parts of the farm, or I'm not happy about the amount of efficiency we're using, or how efficient we're being, and then kind of scoping out makes me realize, okay, you know, we have good sales, the vegetables are beautiful, things are rolling on, our staff are happy, everybody's getting along, you know what I mean? So maybe we don't have to be extremely hyper-efficient, so to speak. Everybody needs time off. There's this whole narrative that like the old farmer who hasn't had a day off in 45 years and never has missed a day milking his own cows, like that's the real farmer. But the reality is that to me sounds like a real sad farmer.
For me, the most important thing is pre-season planning and kind of understanding what you're going to be doing throughout the entire season. As in farming, there's so many different windows of opportunity. So mapping that out as much in advance as possible helps me stay more organized when you're in it, especially in the middle of the season. Secondly, I think that one thing at least that we've done over the years is reduce the amount of production that we're trying to make in the middle of the summertime, for a couple of reasons. I mean, at first when we were first starting out and we were trying to grow everything possible all the time, it was really hard for us to maintain our summer crops come July when you had to start thinking about what you were going to be planting in the fall. And then also we found that every farmer at every farmer's market and all of our like local competition, if you will, our partners everyone's kind of producing the same thing in a short period of time, whereas we found that not a lot of people had the opportunity for winter production and storage. So over the years, we kind of pivoted our focus and reduced what we wanted to be growing and harvesting in the summer and really focus on like the bookends of the season and the winter time. And by doing that, we've found our lives to be way less stressful in the summer. With our farm team, we have weekly meetings every week to kind of just recap what's going on, what was done and what wasn't finished on the week prior. And I think especially for having the whole farm team come together is helpful, because a big part of farming is understanding how to prioritize what priority at a given time, because things just change so quickly especially when it comes to weather. So I think that having that like kind of 3,000 foot view conceptual conversation is really helpful, and it allows us to have like an open discussion of what things we kind of just need to let go and are no longer a priority. Literally an example in our meeting this morning that I had with our farm team was how important it was to be continuing to spend about half a day a week trellising all of our high tunnel tomatoes, for example, because we plan to rip those out at the end of this month to get ready for all of our winter crops that need to go in there. And that's saving us about 5 hours a week for 3 people, which is a massive savings that we could put towards another area of the farm.
There's definitely farm emergencies all the time. when you're farming, whether it be weather related, pest related, employee related. But we can't always allow these farm emergencies that are always going to happen to let us forget our own bodies, our own minds, our own well-being. It's important to, just let things go sometimes. We can't always sacrifice ourselves to the cause of the farm. There's always a small amount of triage and prioritization that needs to happen. So, if you're feeling completely maxed out and, this week's harvest of tomatoes are all going to crack because of the rain and you're about to collapse, make a decision, maybe prioritize yourself instead of the tomatoes this week.
It's one thing to make a list of all the things that you need to be done, but it's another to make a list that is the most realistic possible, the more close to the reality or the things that are possible for you to do in one day. Because if you have impossible goals for the day, you're going to be disappointed day after day, and you're going to be thinking back on your life choices. So we focus on having realistic days with things that can be done in that day.
Especially this time last year. I'm a single mom too, so I was going home exhausted at the end of the day, like physically, mentally, I was just drained. And I think for me, especially addressing mental health, like anxiety has been a big thing of it, and just understanding what was actually important, like what had to be done. And then also like I grew a new respect for rest, where I'm like, no, it's actually so important. I think like our culture really undervalues rest, and like farming has taught me like to work with the seasons, to do things in season. In the winter, that's my winter, so I have a winter of the soul, so to speak, because that's when I go in, and that's when I can do the stuff that I don't do in the summertime. And I think I've just shifted my perspective to just be okay with not having the same expectations as before, where I'm like, no, you don't need to get this done. Like, what do you really need to do? So it's like even embracing the tired part of it, where I'm like, oh, you're exhausted because look what you did in a day. Like there's a before and after. There's that feeling of like, there's that dopamine hit where you're like, yeah, I did something, I can see it, there's that tangibleness. So just like having gratitude for that side of it, and just being like gratitude for my body for being able to do it and keeping up for it, and then just rewarding myself with rest as a response, versus being like, oh no, I'm not energetic enough to continue. It's like, no, I just had to shift my perspective and just prioritize what was important and what where I direct my energy. And I think this year that's actually been a huge help, because yes, there's still this time of year where I'm like, okay, my list is really, really big of stuff that I need to get done, but I'm at peace with it. So yeah.
When I started the farm, in 2016, I got burnt out because I was doing everything by hand. We shoveled the beds by hand. We had absolutely no BCS or no tractors. So it was really tiring physically, but also mentally, starting a business of my own. So I got burnt out, and I read a lot of books. Like one of the most awesome books at that time was The Joy of Burnout. It really helped me understand and take some positive things out of burnout. One of the main things out of burnout is that you get to understand more your body. Like I get to read my body really well. Like last week, it was a really demanding week and day, and I could feel the tiredness and the stress in below my back. So I can see, okay, now I'm really tired. But the good thing is I know what to do to come back into balance and regenerate my energy. So that's a feeling of not control, but being confident, being able to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. I think that's one core difference in terms of burnout, because oftentimes you will feel completely out of control. That's one main thing that leads you to burnout.
If you're in the fields right now or in the garden, whatever, and things are not going, accordingly, things are not going well, you have perhaps like it's disease, pests, crop failures, pest, it's like too much of this, not enough of that. Take good notes. This is the good time to take good notes. take good notes in the field of everything that's not going well. Take pictures, take notes, have a diary, but we're not interested in what's going well. We want to know what's not going according to how it should be, because that's going to be your references for November, December, January, when we're thinking about another season. You'll need those notes. So it's unfortunate if things are not going, according to plan or not going perfect. But one thing that you need to do is take notes of that. Whenever it's hairy, you're overstretched, you're overloaded, too much work, too much fail. It's this time of year. There's one thing that can really, really help you, and it's this. Do one thing at a time mindfully before moving on to the next thing. That really is the only way to overcome overwork, overburden. It's because the contrary to that is to do too many things too fast, and you end up making mistakes. You're stressed, you're not mindful, and then that work usually ends up being poor work, or you need to do it again. The other thing that also we've done really, really early on is work an 8 to 5. And it sounds really weird for people to hear that, but when we moved to an 8 to 5, we got more work done in less time, because we were faced with a cutoff at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, which forced us to prioritize, to get it done, to speed up the last hour, to get as much work done in that day, considering that the list is so long, before we finish. We start at the same time. It's very clear what we're doing today. I lay out the game plan for everyone on the team. And when my day is done, I always take half an hour before the team stops to sit down and write tomorrow's list of what we need to do tomorrow. And when I do that, it just brings a lot of clarity to where we're at. It diminishes the overload in my mind. Like, I can go and do something else afterward. I'm prepared for the next day. If there's anything I could get some fuel or some whatever. If I know that I'm planting the next day, I make sure that I have the seeds. So I just prepare, and then I start the next day with already prepared, and then I'm with everyone that's working that day, and I'm setting out what's going on. And I would say that these two things are really important. So making sure that you set up an 8 to 5 and you stick to it, and then also making sure that you always finish your day's work by preparing the next day.